There you are.
Hello. Hi, Jessica.
How are you?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me join you today.
I'm so excited for you to be here. And I mean, you're so amazing anyway. I'm going to get all my fangirling out at the beginning.
Aw, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing that. That totally makes
um,
my day, and I'm happy to be here to share for sure.
aw. Well, I mean, you have so much incredible information to share. And so we're just continuing this month in November with Canine Cancer Awareness. And I'm really super, super stoked that we were like already talking about having, doing an Instagram live, and then this came up. So to actually have like focus of what we're talking about. And it's such a big topic, and it's such an important topic, and it's such a topic that is, um, if it hasn't affected you yet, and I mean you as like the listener or the viewer, then it's likely to at some point in your lifetime, because that's just the sad reality of the statistics. But Dr. Katie Kangas, you are a veterinarian, an integrative veterinarian in Southern California. You're not in San Diego, but you're very close. Where are you at again?
It's pretty much San Diego. So technically our my clinic is in Solana Beach, but it's San Diego County. It's right here in San Diego. So yeah, close enough.
And I've had you on the podcast before, so a lot of you probably are already familiar with Dr. Katie. But you are an integrative veterinarian, and so I love to get people's perspectives on what that means, because like it means something to me. But like, can you tell people a little bit about your journey and what you consider to be integrative veterinary medicine?
Absolutely. And just to brief into my journey, I graduated in 1993 from veterinary school. So that's amazing that I've been a vet for more than 30 years. That's incredible. But it feels good, so good in the fact that I have amassed so much learning and so much clinical experience. And all of us, pet parents, everybody alive, really, we are learning every day. So learning never stops. But it, is really nice that my journey has brought me to the point where I have accrued enough clinical experience and now holistic, because I've been holistic and integrative for almost 20 years now, that I really feel so good about having so much value to give to people and to my pet patients, because of that massive learning that continues every day. But once I started my interest into holistic medicine, sort of my pathway in was Chinese medicine and getting acupuncture certified, et cetera. And then I really branched into, more expansion throughout integrative with functional medicine, Western herbs, homeopathy. There's just so many tools in the toolbox, which is such a beautiful thing. And that's what we love about integrative. And then so to define it for everyone, at least from my perspective, is that integrative, of course, is really using all the tools in the toolboxes that we have. And the beautiful thing about coming outside of conventional medicine is that we have so many more tools, just like a lot of the modalities that I just, mentioned in rattling that off. And so we don't want to completely ignore conventional medicine, and it has its place. And we use it when it's sensible to use. We make every effort to not overuse it and to, use it to the point where we're getting negative effects, et cetera. But we do want to take into account when it is helpful for the patient to utilize conventional tools, then that's part of the toolbox that we can choose from, which is great. And then obviously bringing in the holistic and integrative tools allows us to minimize the amount of pharmaceuticals that we might need, to have less side effects or negative impact on the body from those items, or simply just to be more preventative so we don't get, or our pets don't get, a lot of these conditions in the first place. So that's the beautiful thing. And the other thing that I think is really neat to know or conceptualize about integrative is really that sort of that saying that it's an N of one, meaning it's that individual patient. So integrative really takes into account the physical being, the constitution, the mental, emotional, and physical and spiritual aspects of the body, the patient, the animal, the human. And that's truly integrative, is that N of one, of what is best for this individual. all the things taken into consideration and all of those aspects of the person or dog person or pet person, versus the conventional sort of mindset, which is much more narrow and focusing on the disease and how to treat the disease. So,
Yeah. Well, gosh, all of that is so important. And today, so we have a really great question, and I want to get to that in just a minute. But what I was really hoping to focus on today is kind of twofold. One, I've been listening a lot lately to Dr. Kendra Pope, who's a veterinary oncologist. So very few of them in the United States, and um, she she really kind of opened my eyes. Like I kind of knew, but to hear somebody like with her authority to say this, I was like, oh yes, okay. That even though, and I feel like this is almost like a kind of gaslighting that's happening to us as a society. So much of the funding for cancer research, whether we're talking about humans or dogs, is going towards like the genetic aspect. But if you listen to somebody like Dr. Kendra Pope, she says it's really 90 to 95% lifestyle.
exactly.
And that is so
Yep.
empowering, really, I think.
Very empowering. It really changes the inaccurate mindset that we've had for so long that your genes determine your outcome. And then people just feel like a victim or like their dog's a victim and I can't do anything because we're a victim of our genetics. And fortunately, along came the discovery of epigenetics, which is what Dr. Kendra Pope talks a lot about, rightly so, is that epigenetics, epi being above, genetics, is that just because you have a gene for something doesn't mean that it's going to be expressed to have a certain outcome. And what influences the expression of our genes is the vast majority of that influence is environmental and lifestyle, anything from clearly diet, toxins, stress, poor food, processed food, all of these things. And so that's where, and I guess a nice, easy description is that we really thought that cancer was such a genetic disease. And now the top scientists and the rest of us holistic and integrative people really understand that it's a metabolic disease, not so much a genetic disease. So,
Yeah. And so to start to address this one person's question, like the three of the most fundamental things to life are air, water, food, right? And they're all toxic at this point. So there may be some other things that I think to really get into all of the decisions we could make in our environment, lifestyle choices that we're making, could probably take days and days and days to talk about. So maybe some of the like key ones that you would want to focus on first for a pet parent. And the question that we have is around accessing clean water for our pets. And I know this is something for me that I don't want to say I struggle with, but I know that I've gotten to a point where, like, okay, I'm comfortable enough, but I know there's more that I could be doing. So, just to kind of give you a baseline for me right now, what I do for me and my pets is spring water that I add minerals back to.
yep.
Now, I think there's a whole lot more that we probably could be doing. And there's a whole lot of talk around like structured water, hydrogen water, all of that stuff. But
Yep.
just, for the average pet parent, just the idea of like whatever water is being pumped through your pipes in the US, you're probably not getting clean.
No. Yeah,
Probably,
it's virtually impossible. I mean, all the experts are like, there are no pipes delivering water that are not going to have some toxin. Obviously, some areas are going to have higher concentration of toxins in the water than others, but you pretty much can count on the fact anything coming through pipes is not as clean as we want to be. And so my recommendation for everybody is not to use tap water for their pets or themselves. And it can be as simple as, getting, like you said, getting sources of spring water or having a reverse osmosis unit or some kind of whole house filtration unit or getting a really good filter that you filter your water through, whether that's, one of the pitchers that has good filters I could even give you a name to post. There's one that Dr. Mindy Pels recommends that I've heard such good things about. I have friends and family that have that, but I have an RO unit in my house, so that's what I do. But I remineralize it as well, just like you do with trace mineral drops.
Yeah. So, um, and I think again, like you said, across the board for you, for your pets, for everybody in your family, that's what we really want to be drinking is the cleanest water possible, you know the heavy metals, the fluorides, the chlorine, all that junk. Like that's not ideal. So Tail Waggers Haven, they're struggling to access clean water. Can you tell me a little bit more about like where you are, what you're struggling with getting clean water? Because I
Yeah.
think that makes a big difference.
And then maybe, yeah, and a filter then,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are filters that do a really, the common Brita filter doesn't do much, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
To remove chlorine and things like that, but it won't remove a lot of the other, contaminants. So there are better filters, but if, somebody has trouble getting access to clean water, I mean, I think having a really good filter is going to be the best thing you can do. And whether that's pitcher by pitcher or something you can have for the building system or the house system or whatever.
Yeah, and I think there are a lot of levels, like you were saying. There's you can do pitchers for
Hmm.
emergencies. There are like straws that you can use, and then like there are countertop units, and then there are like whole house units, and
Yep.
so there's a big array of wherever
Options.
you are right now in
Hmm.
your journey to fit your lifestyle. So what are some of the things, like I was saying at the very beginning, when I think of like the most fundamental things: air, water, food for me, but maybe there are other things for you. If you are just giving a pet parent like a brief overview of like, where do I start? What are some of the biggest things, maybe where they can have the biggest impact to start doing for their pets? Because even if they're not necessarily thinking cancer off the top of their head, they're thinking, I want to keep my pet healthy, period. Like how would we start down that road? What are we looking for?
And just to clarify, Jessica, are you talking about toxins like air, water, or are you talking just like everything? What do we want to do to be prevent? I mean, I know that's big,
Yeah,
but like prevention in general, or starting off with like the actual toxin topic?
I think prevention in
General.
general,
Got it.
whatever you're most comfortable, like what you would talk to a pet parent
Yeah,
about.
absolutely. And I think, all of your community already knows this, so we probably don't need to spend any time talking about food, the food, air, water, just like you mentioned. Those are all of the things that we can sort of, analyze and mitigate to the best of our ability as to exposing our pets and ourselves to the cleanest of everything that we possibly can. And, we're not in a clean world, so we do our best, and realize that we can't always be perfect, but obviously if the budget allows, feeding all organic things, not feeding processed food. I mean, everybody knows that sort of thing. Glyphosate, Roundup, all that kind of stuff that's in non-organic foods is a huge offender of, I mean, it's carcinogenic, not to mention, endocrine disrupting and toxic to the gut and the gut barrier and all that kind of stuff. So I think everybody probably in this community already knows that. So we just want to be as clean as we can for our pets. When it comes to all around prevention, there are so many great things. And this is what will be the empowering part for people, is that we've already sort of cleared up that you don't have to feel doomed or feel like your pet is doomed due to genetics. There are so many things that we can affect in the environment, and lifestyle for our pets and ourselves, that empower us to be more preventative and more likely to stay cancer free. And I love, you actually brought up Dr. Kendra Pope, and she is phenomenal. She's done a lot of talks and been on, with Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib and such and so forth. But she said a comment that I absolutely love when I heard her recently. And she said, we already have the cure for cancer. It's prevention. And I'm like, oh, that is such a golden statement. And she alluded to, which, a lot of us know already, is that we have cancer cells in our body all the time. But it's our body's job for the healthy cells and the good immune system cells to identify those mutating cells and those rogue cells and get rid of them and, help to remove those. And so some of the powerful things that we can do for prevention, I mean, that's just a perfect segue into intermittent fasting as an option. And that when the body is not constantly intaking food and calories, when you have that time restricted feeding and you have a window of not eating for an animal or a person, then the body is able to go into its own cleanup mode, and which is called autophagy, where the healthy cells are getting rid of the rogue cells and the cells that are degenerating and going bad and becoming cancerous. And so that is just one of many methods, that but a powerful one, to support our pets in a prevention mode. And so, again, that can be done in different ways with time restricted. It can be a few days a week. It can, and I think it's probably easier to achieve that, or at least more quickly, with large breed dogs. With small breed dogs, a little bit take into consideration, everybody's an individual, and their size and breed and age and other health status and all that kind of stuff makes a difference with intermittent fasting. But there's a ton of information out on that. I wrote an article for Animal Wellness almost a couple years ago now that, we could post the link on intermittent fasting. It's short, but, really informative. But that's something people can plug into as well, and there's obviously much more, but if you want to.
And that's free. Like,
Exactly.
you don't,
Good comment, right?
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's so much we could still talk about with testing and supplements and all of these things, but let's hit on the free things first because they're powerful, they're so accessible. And so the way you feed your pet and how often your pet eats or, how many hours a day they're not eating, all that sort of thing is a huge prevention and free. And then a few other things that are important are exercise and staying lean, because we now know that obesity and being overweight is a definite, promoter of a lot of diseases, including cancer. And that applies to both animals and humans. So staying lean, and then the whole exercise thing, that's a fun topic too, because we know how much exercise impacts the health. But when it specifically comes to cancer prevention, that's important as well, because exercise brings more oxygenation to the body's tissues. And one of the great things to know about cancer, and actually we can sort of tie this in because I didn't mention ketogenic diets when we were talking about intermittent fasting, a whole nother method that people can use is the keto style diet, which is low in carbohydrate. Fortunately, cancer cells really rely on glucose for their fuel primarily. And so when you have a carb restricted diet, which is species appropriate for dogs and cats anyway, then that is helping to suppress cancer growth because it's not giving cancer cells a lot of fuel. Similarly, interestingly, cancer cells do not thrive well in an oxygenated environment. Cancer cells thrive more in an anaerobic environment that is deprived of oxygen, which is why hyperbaric oxygen is also very sought after in the integrative, field and treatment therapies for people and even for pets, although it's harder to access for pets. But hyperbaric oxygen and even ozone therapy, because ozone always also delivers oxygen to the cells, but exercise, which is free, does that too. And so anytime we have regular exercise, we have healthier, more oxygenated cells, which means our mitochondria are working better. And, all the healthy cells that are keeping the cancer cells in check are working better. And it really helps to suppress cancer too. So another fun thing too, to just tag on to the exercise topic, is that where you exercise can also make a difference too. And the whole thing with, grounding and forest bathing and, being in the outdoors as much as we can. And it's so good for us. And if our pets are an incentive to get us there, I mean, what a beautiful win-win that is. But there's actually many studies that have been done on forest bathing. And actually, when I was just at the AHVMA, one of the lecturers talked a lot about the science of forest bathing. It was really neat, and how the frequency of the trees and all of the plants in nature are literally communicating, because of course our cells also run on frequency of energy. And so just like EMF can be a treatment and essential oils, which change the vibration and the frequency of, cells and everything. Just being out in nature can change the frequency and can amp up the immune system's ability to do some autophagy and kick out the, cancer cells and mutated cells. So that's a really beautiful thing
Yeah.
too.
I'm so glad you mentioned grounding and forest bathing, because when you brought up hyperbaric, that's where my mind went, was getting out in like clean, healthy soil
Right.
and like absorbing that energy of the earth, the ions and all the
Yep.
stuff from the
You're
earth.
exactly right. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah,
And you even jogged me to also add in when you talked about the healthy air and soil. Again, grounding, whether it's in soil or sand or grass or whatever, that's all good, but it's also supporting a healthy microbiome too. And we know, that there's so much information out there about dogs that spend more time in true soil have better overall are going to have better microbiome status too. And we know that the microbiome is, largely influencing the body's immune system and even the body's ability. And Dr. Pope talks about this too, that the microbiome is very involved in the body's ability to address cancer and prevent cancer. So,
yeah. So some of the other things that I think about, um, we obviously we kind of touched on removing as many toxins from the air, from the water, from the food, and I that's like, on one hand, I say, like, I know it's a privilege, but on the other hand, like, it shouldn't be a privilege to be able to eat clean food, to be able to have access
mm,
to organic foods, to be able to have access to animals that are raised regeneratively. Like, it's sad that we have this like asterisk next to if you can afford to do that, right?
no, yeah,
Um, but it can make a really, really big difference. And I like, it always pops in my head now when I hear people, I see people online all the time saying, like, I don't know what I did wrong. My dog eats a raw food diet, blah, blah, blah. Um, and it, to me, like, that sometimes can be that linchpin. And like, okay, you're going to the grocery store, you're buying the cheapest cuts of meat, blah, all the things, because that's what you can do to afford to feed your dog this diet, which, by the way, is a win.
right,
Like, that is a win.
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
sometimes that linchpin really can be the difference between that um, GMO crop and that organic crop, or
right,
the animal that was raised in a feedlot versus an animal
yeah,
that was raised regeneratively. And so I never, even though, again, there's this like asterisk of like, it's a privilege to be able to do this. I understand that, but also it really can make a
yeah.
huge
It's nice to know that and just not to have any guilt attached if people are not able to achieve that fully. But even if you can do some, like even if 30% of what you feed is organic. It's better than nothing, it's better than 100% not being. And so I would just encourage people to do whatever they can in that regard. And also, like to sort of speak to what you said, Jessica, is if at all possible, the more we can invest on the front end of prevention, the less we're spending on the back end of that, the care, because if a pet does obviously get any disease, including cancer, people will do everything they can to come up with the funds to care for their pet to get them better. And it's so nice if that money was spent on the front end instead,
yeah.
yeah. So to whatever degree that can happen, obviously is a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Um, and so I think with a lot of disease, we think of inflammation being at like the root cause of a lot of disease. So what are some of the like everyday things we could be doing? Maybe adding into the bowl, maybe I don't know. What are some of the things, like I have a few off the top of my head that I tend to play around with, but do you have any like supplements or things that you
I
think are great?
do. And I think that a couple of the things so that I don't forget to go there, because, common supplement or, good supplements and common supplements we can talk about too, because that's super helpful and an easy category to, touch into for people. But some of the things to mention right off the bat that are so anti-inflammatory: vitamin D is a huge protector of the body when it comes to cancer and all chronic diseases, because vitamin D is not only, you know, a lot of people recognize it as being very helpful for the body to be more resilient to infection, which is absolutely true. Whether it's bacterial, viral, fungal, whatever, if your vitamin D levels are low, you're more susceptible to infection. But what's also very important is that if vitamin D levels are low, the body's going to be more prone to inflammation. And it's very difficult for the body to resolve inflammatory patterns. And so vitamin D is recognized as a big, you know, a big advantage for cancer prevention, or even once cancer is diagnosed, like get that vitamin D up to help that body recover and do better. So testing though for vitamin D is really important, because vitamin D, of course, is a fat soluble vitamin. So I don't generally recommend to just, you know, give an average dose of vitamin D, because everybody's different. Even within the same household, you'll have 3 dogs on the same diet and their vitamin Ds are all completely different. So testing is really important. Most integrative veterinarians obviously offer these tests. I do as well. And we have, and of course, I do a lot of telemedicine. So I have an online shop on my website, and we do sell the test kits, if, you know, over the counter, and people can get them and go to their primary vet or their local veterinarian and have a blood draw. If you know, anybody listening isn't doing this already, definitely something I would recommend. And then another test, and actually the company that I use, I can just mention it for the vitamin D testing, is VDI. I actually put that right here just as a visual in case that's helpful for anybody, but VDI is the lab. And there is a test called the Essential Vitamins Test, which includes the vitamin D. And then another really important thing for inflammation is omega-3 fatty acids. So the DHA and EPA omega-3s that we all need for so many aspects of health, but they are just very, you know, markedly anti-inflammatory. And we know that omega-3 fatty acids are definitely cancer protective. So, and a lot of oncologists, veterinary oncologists, if they know anything about nutrition, they're like high dose omega-3s when you have, you know, cancer, or even just in prevention. But the beautiful thing is now we can test for omega-3s in dogs, and hopefully soon for cats too. But currently the test is available for dogs, and we do have that test as well. And Omega Quant is the company that most of us use, and that's what I use. And so testing your pets for omega-3 levels is so important and beneficial in you being able, and anyone being able to customize, you know, what their pet needs and get either more omega-3 containing things into the diet, you know, whether that's sardines and wild caught salmon and, you know, multitudes of things that are good resources for omega-3, but also supplements, you know, and whether that's a sardine anchovy oil, a cod liver oil, a calamari oil, etc. But yeah, those are very, very important topics within the anti-inflammatory discussion.
They
So
are. I'm actually so stinking excited to edit. I did a it's like a master class with Judah Vitale from Nordic Naturals for the podcast. And so he gave me, I don't know, it was well over an hour, and all we talked about was omegas. And I'm so excited to get that edited and put up.
that is going to be so good, like from an omega-3 you know, expert, you
Yeah,
know, a fatty acid
yeah,
expert. Like that is really valuable information, because there's still so much that people don't know and that even doctors don't know. And so getting that kind of, you know, knowledgeable information out there is going to be awesome.
I know. I'm really excited because I mean, we went over like everything I could think of, including like not using pump bottles, not using plastic bottles, like all of the things.
Refrigeration and the
Yes,
oxidation and, you know,
yes.
all of that, the sourcing, but as well
Hmm.
also as the, you know, the methods, the cold pressing, the storage, et cetera, et cetera. That is
Yes.
wonderful, because
Yeah.
it's such important information. I mean, if we're going to give fish oils, let's do it right, because there's a lot
Hmm.
of fish oils on the market that are downright harmful.
Yeah.
And then even if you pick a good one and it's not in a glass bottle, or it's in a pump, or it's not stored right and refrigerated, then you're actually doing more harm to your pet's body or your own body than helping it. So that's a key, you know, key fact too.
Yeah. So I want to shift a little bit towards what you think are going to be some of the best things for pet parents to consider and think about when, if they actually get this diagnosis. And I think we have a couple of other questions that can kind of lead us in that direction. So Lauren with Girls Gone Raw Pet Health joined, and she says that she has a friend whose dog was recently diagnosed with mast cell cancer after having a large lump removed. There's no other lumps they can find currently, but she knows that mast cell behaves very, very differently. So they've already discussed an anti-inflammatory diet, supplements, full spectrum CBD, which we haven't talked about yet. I know what else. I think she said one other thing. She was saying that, yeah, utilizing the fasting feeding window has been very, very helpful for her seniors, especially. But I know mast cell does behave very, very differently. And one of the things that I am by no means an expert. I'm going to leave this up to you. But one of the things I know with mast cell is that I'm like hyper focused on reducing histamine. So
Right.
with that one specifically.
Right. Reducing histamines. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the hallmark of mast cell, cancer, is that these tumors are releasing mast cells and histamine. Um,
Sorry. Let me
abs-
grab her.
no worries.
You're good.
We say we're chiming in
She
with
is.
with dog voice. That's awesome. She's like, I would love to contribute to this conversation. Hello, sweetheart.
Hello.
That's perfect. So yeah, mast cells are, very different. And that's, kind of a little category on its own, of things to do, but definitely focusing on anything that is reducing histamine release. And there are several natural things, and many people are aware of quercetin, which is a bioflavonoid that is, naturally, antihistamine. There are other things like beta sterols and, the beta thyme product that I carry, which has thymus gland and beta sterols, which helps to reduce histamine and mast cell release. So that's a nice product as well. I also really, oftentimes for mast cell tumors, I will tap into Chinese herbs. That's a really good category to bring up for that one, for blood-based tumors. But all the other things that we've talked about are also, key in that. And some of the other anti-inflammatory supplements that we didn't discuss yet, we can sort of segue over to that because Lauren brought up the CBD and cannabinoids, which is such a good plant medicine category to tap into for many things, but certainly for cancer. And we know that cannabinoids have direct anti-tumor benefits, but also anti-inflammatory benefits, supporting, it's adaptogens, supporting, immune support, supporting the overall well-being. So that's something that could be added in for certainly mast cell cancer, but any, obviously, cancer. Other very well-known, but really, really helpful things are things like curcumin, turmeric, mushrooms, superstar, obviously, category of supplements and superfoods. So any of the medicinal mushrooms are wonderful, but some of the common players that people would be thinking of for cancer would be turkey tail, cordyceps, but shiitake, maitake, all of those, lion's mane, chaga, all of them. But cordyceps and turkey tail really come to forefront for me for, for this conversation, but really blends are a good way to go. And so that's
One of the
definitely something.
things that I often forget, but somehow popped in my head just now, is to not overlook the liver support, because the liver has to process all of these things. And I know that since you brought up mushrooms, oyster mushrooms actually, if I remember correctly from Lee Carroll, was telling me oyster mushrooms have the highest ergothioneine levels, which is really, really great for liver support and flushing.
Absolutely. Yeah. He talked a lot about ergo and how important that component is. And I love that you brought up liver support because I'm selective in each time I meet with pet parents. So I'm not overwhelming them with too long of a list of recommendations because again, we have so many tools in our toolbox, which is exciting, but it can be a little overwhelming when we're talking about numbers of supplements to add in. But I always am considering liver support, honestly, with any chronic condition, but certainly with cancer too. And a step further is if the pet parent is going to pursue any conventional therapy, certainly chemotherapies or even, prednisone or these other things that are immunosuppressants that are used in a cancer protocol, definitely we want to bring in some liver support. But even if, we're just doing integrative and holistic tools, then liver support is still a good thing to be on the list. Absolutely. Good mention.
So, and Lauren says she's currently chopping oyster and lion's mane as we speak.
Oh, how
Um,
cool is that?
I
She's
saw
on it.
she made a run to like somebody growing them locally near her, and she's doing some sort of fun holiday treat. So excited to see what that's going to be. But um, so if you had unlimited time to speak with a pet parent in your clinic, and you had to give them a cancer diagnosis for their dog, what would be the first things that you want them to start thinking about? Or do you want them to do you want them to like take some time to process, clear their head, wrap their emotions around it all, and then start looking at like a checklist? How would you handle that?
Yeah, that's such a great question, Jessica. And, it really is so individual because everybody's different. People react and respond differently to, this type of information. Somebody that's had a pet with cancer already that's sort of been through this might have a very different reaction to somebody where this is just, completely unknown territory for them. Um, One of my first questions for people would be, um, you know, are they interested in pursuing any conventional therapy? And different cancers respond differently. I mean, there are some cancers that we know, like conventional therapy is really, there's not a lot of options. And for most of those, excuse me, to the degree that I'm familiar with, I will support people with that. Like in my experience, this type of cancer, you know, probably wouldn't respond well to conventional therapies, but there are some that do respond relatively well. And so I always get, because everybody's different. And so I always get that take. Do you want to at least know your options from the conventional side? My recommendation is to at least have a consultation with a veterinary oncologist. If you could get in with somebody like Dr. Pope, who is an integrative veterinary oncologist, I mean, 110%, that's what I would do. But I can guide people with a lot of the integrative side of things. And so I like to remind them that there's options and that we can pull in some conventional or completely, not use that at all and delve into either way. What I love to tell people is whether you're doing conventional or not, all the tools that we have on the integrative and holistic side are going to be useful. And we can just see, what works for your dog in their regimen. And then the other thing that I really like to share with people to alleviate some of the emotional burden is that we all have this notion. I think Dr. Kendra Pope said this in one of her recent talks, where we visualize and think in our mindset, we hate cancer cells, we want to get rid of them, we got to fight the cancer, we got to get rid of the cancer. And although we do really want to get rid of the cancer, that would be great, and sometimes that is achievable. But there's also a really good mindset of acceptance sometimes, in that let's support the pet to live well with cancer. If it's not something that we can get rid of, if it's liver cancer or whatever, and we can't, resect it, or surgery is not an option or whatever, that there are a lot of, circumstances where pets or humans can live well with cancer in the body. And that is still an amazing win. And I've had so many patients that have lived far beyond expectations. Maybe their cancer never went away, but they lived for months or even years longer than projected with cancer, and they're still running around chasing squirrels. And it's like, oh my gosh, they're living with cancer and they're doing it damn well,
Yeah.
you know? And so it's nice to know that there is power to do that too. Even if we can't eradicate the cancer, doesn't mean that the pet is doomed from quality of life from the get-go.
Yeah, well, two things there that I thought of. One is that the dog doesn't know that it has cancer. You're the one that knows, right? So let them live their life, be happy, do all the things as much as they can, as long as they can.
Yep.
But also, kind of circling back to what you said at the beginning, is that we all have cancer cells in us all the time anyway. So living with it isn't an extreme thought. Like once it gets to the point where our body isn't able to, it's proliferating at a point where our body hasn't been able to contain it, mitigate it, keep it in check. Like that's the reality of it versus one day you didn't have cancer and the next day you do. Like that's not
Exactly.
right.
Yeah, exactly. And there are certain cancers, obviously, that are known to be more aggressive and, more rapid in their progression and things like that. But there's always individual variability. And so I always try and retain the most optimism because we often see stuff, we often see better outcomes than are projected. Um, but, I just guide people the best I can with the experience that I have of how certain cancers you know, uh, tend to act, but always with optimism that the tools we have are almost always going to get the pet not only more longevity, but importantly, more quality. And actually, Jessica, on many occasions, which is so exciting, I've had people come to me if they weren't doing holistic already for their pet, especially, and they come looking for holistic or integrative care for their pet because their pet's been diagnosed with cancer. I've had many patients over the years where literally 3 6 months down the line after the cancer diagnosis, the pet parents are like, my dog is healthier now than they were freaking 2 years ago before the cancer. And so that can happen too. And again, everything's different, and rates of things can, or rapid movement of things can be different, but that happens enough times too where it's so rewarding.
Yeah. Well, and it is kind of a sad thing to think like we have to have something, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes we have to have something so horrible happen to lead us down this road to find all of these wonderful things and bring us back really to nature, because what we're doing right now is the experiment that is failing. um, but also like I really like to look at it as everything is a lesson in life, and some lessons are harder than others, but it's all here. It's all designed to, teach us, to make us better. And that dog that got cancer, that dog that maybe didn't live as long as you had hoped, or had some other disease, and you really went through it. Like you were really drugged through the ringer, but it taught you so much. And maybe that dog was brought here because now you have all these other dogs you're going to have later on in your life that you're going to do so much better for because you've learned so much with that dog. And I like to look at things that way.
Beautifully said. I do as well, and it really is accurate. But it's sort of an overall picture, a big picture that sometimes people aren't seeing. So it's beautiful to bring that up because I 100% agree. Everything that happens to us, or alongside of us, that we learn through allows us to do better as we move forward, and help more pets and help ourselves and help other family members. I mean, we really just, such growth and such expansion every time we go through an unwanted or a painful process. We reach new heights, and a lot of times it gives us more purpose and more motivation to learn more and take different actions, make different decisions, and that's an empowering thing.
It is. It is. I think so much of what we talked about today is I mean, just like I said at the very beginning, like understanding that 90 plus percent of this is lifestyle, is diet, exercise, removing toxins from the air, from the water, from your home, is so empowering. And like a lot of times when we talk about cancer, it seems like such a sad thing to talk about, and such a like melancholy, like,
Hmm.
ugh, we got to talk about cancer now. But like looking at it in that there is so much that we actually can do
Hmm.
to create positive change in our lives and our pets' lives. Like that's
Yep.
so wonderful
Yep.
to me.
It is. It's nice to tap into that strength, aspect, because, knowledge is power, and we're learning so much about how these things that we're discussing today, how much impact they truly have. And, once we know that, then, it's much more enjoyable to take those action steps because we know we're really making a difference for our pets and ourselves.
Yeah. And I'm glad. So I want you to talk about, because you mentioned you do telehealth and online things. You have an online store. I want you to talk about all of that. But really quickly, you brought up Dr. Mindy Peltz, who I absolutely love. So I read Fast Like a Girl, I don't know, like 2 years ago, and it has made such a huge difference in my life to fast like a girl.
Yes.
And not just fast, but fast like a girl. And I'm currently reading Eat Like a Girl.
Same.
And it's just so amazing the things that we can do for our bodies and how much control we have over them. And another account that I would really love people to pay some attention to, because I think it ties so much into what you're talking about with how it's all connected, and um, how our health, our our dog's health, we say our pet's health kind of mirror our human health. I think it's probably a lot worse actually in our pets, but um, our health is a reflection of the health of the earth, of the planet. Dr. Callie Means talks a lot about that. So if I could put people on to like following her as well, I think that's a really incredible resource to learn more about the interconnectedness of us all.
Yes.
And
Yep.
cleaning everything up, cleaning up not just ourselves, not just our pets, but cleaning up the earth, cleaning up.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And I'm so glad you spent a moment, bringing those, experts into the conversation too. There's such not only leading authorities on these topics, but they're so helpful, and so supportive in getting these messages and this information to people so that we can take these action steps to help ourselves, and really collectively then therefore the planet and the population. And so phenomenal resources. And yeah, I'm reading both books. I follow her podcasts and everything from Dr. Mindy Pels and Dr. Means as well. So really good resources all the way
yeah.
around.
So we talked a little bit. You are in San Diego County, but you do telehealth. So what kind of things can you offer to pet parents who may not be in California at all?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So, really, I would say surprisingly, although I'm not surprised anymore, but surprisingly for a lot of people, a lot of pet parents, telehealth or telemedicine is remarkably useful and effective. I have assisted, supported hundreds and hundreds, I mean, thousands of pets literally without ever seeing them in person, uh, because usually from a holistic or integrative standpoint, oftentimes my biggest value to people is to help support them with a plan of action. That plan can include dietary changes, it can include supplements, it can include testing like vitamin D and omega-3, that sort of thing. Even when people come to me locally, because I specialize in holistic, I always tell people you still need to have a primary veterinarian. You still need to have a veterinarian that does general services because I don't offer those. I'm very specialized and streamlined. So when it comes to telemedicine, all of my clients would have a primary veterinarian and sometimes specialists, obviously sometimes numerous specialists. They'll have a cardiologist and a dermatologist and an oncologist, etc. But in conventional medicine, I think a lot of us are aware of the fact that there's rarely a doctor on the healthcare team of a person or a pet that's overseeing everything. You have all these specialists, and and for somebody to sort of put that all together and customize a plan of action and a wellness support plan for that individual is so valuable. And so I get to be that person and provide that value. And I take all the records that get sent to me from any of the veterinarians that these pets have seen, and I've got all the documentation of the physical exams or any labs that were done, and I assess all of that and then meet with the pet parent, go through a very detailed discussion together on Zoom or on the phone, and then help to formulate a plan of action. Where do we go next from here? And then generally, if there's a lot of significant stuff going on, if it's just a little preventative health, information, then, people can just tap back into me as needed. But oftentimes, of course, people are finding me because their pet has a, condition or a chronic condition. And so in those kinds of cases, then I really like to, you know, inform people of the outcome is generally going to be much better when we can do follow-up. So those are important as well, is to, check back in every month or two until the pet is doing better. And that can, obviously vary. But it is really amazing how telemedicine works for this.
Well, I think it's amazing that you're doing it because, as you mentioned, there isn't that, like, generally speaking, that one person that's overseeing it all. I know so many people. I mean, I have multiple veterinarians for healthy animals.
Hmm.
So, like, I mean, I feel empowered that I know enough that I kind of manage it all
Right.
and I can manage between all of it. But most pet parents, it's just not like you've got your job, you've got your kids, you're running around, you've got all these things, right? Like, how do you have the time, the bandwidth, the capacity
Yep.
to handle all of that, to manage all of that, especially if your pet is dealing with some sort of chronic illness. And so having somebody who can manage all of that and steer you in the right
Yes.
direction, hopefully a more, holistic approach, or at least integrative approach to.
I love how
Uh,
you said that. It is really steering people in the right direction and either pulling in tools and recommendations from the integrative holistic realm, and on occasion steering them to a specialist that their pet needs. Does your pet need a cardiac ultrasound or an echocardiogram, so that we really know what's going on, so that we can affect your pet best from a holistic angle and or conventional angle? Or do they need an internal medicine specialist for some diagnostics to get us, holistic and integrative people, we love testing. And, anytime we get information from testing, we can be more valuable to that pet to support them with what they need in a customized plan. So a lot of times it is just steering them in the right direction and supporting them from a broad scope of all that information being, put together.
yeah, awesome. Well, where can people find you to engage in
Thank
this
you.
telehealth?
So on our website, which is intvetcare.com, so INTVET care.com. IntVetCare is also our social media. We have IntVetCare and then Dr. Katie Kangas. And then I also just started my own product line after all these years. I've been wanting to do this for quite some time and just started my own product line. And that company is called Share Your Bowl. And the premises behind that is that the products that I'm creating really are, indicated or appropriate for people as well as pets. So, and that was sort of born out of, all the years that my team heard me saying, oh, this is great for your pet. This is made for pets, but it works really well for people too. So feel free to, share this with your dog. Or, hey, this is made for humans, but we use it in pets. So feel free to share it with your pet. And the food and all the stuff that we recommend for them that we should be eating, the bone broth and the fermented foods and all these sort of things. So that's where Share Your Bowl was born, with that concept. And we have several products, including homeopathy, dental and gingival care, more products coming, but we just released some healthy spice blends that are for dogs and humans, and you can shake them on your food and then shake them in your dog's bowl. And we have a turmeric anti-inflammatory blend. And these, by the way, the spices have sprouted superfoods in them. So sprouted from chia seed and hemp seed and sunflower seed, etc., to all kinds of medicinal herbs and spices, and they are so tasty. So it's really fun for people to try them, or use them, I should say, too. But as soon as you taste them, you'll be like, oh my God, I'm totally using this. And then we also have a black truffle, blend that is our antioxidant blend, because like mushrooms have, the truffle has a lot of antioxidant medicinal properties too.
Oh, that's so exciting. I need this more than my pets do.
And I, and the fun thing about that particular those products, is that I've had so many people tell me over the years, I home cook for my pet or I prepare my pet's food, but I never add spices and I never, and most of our community already knows this from wonderful resources like Forever Dog and the new, cookbook as well. But there's no reason to avoid spices like they're a problem for pet food. They're actually very medicinal. And there's occasions where you might need to feed bland for certain temporary things, but in general I think spices are a very under recognized amazing health tool that can not only enhance health but enhance flavor, and it's just so much more fun.
Yes, but it is fun to play around with the bowl. And products that I can use on me and my dog and my cats, those are my favorite. Hands down, they are my
Yep.
favorite. I go for them before anything. Like there are certain ones. I remember back in July at Nautical Dog, and we were talking about the Two Crazy Cat Ladies product line, and they like I swear by their product line because I literally will use pretty much every single item they have for me and my dog and my
Isn't
cat.
that great? Yep.
Yeah.
I love that too. Seriously, I'm putting my Sage's bowl together. It's like some for you, some for me. Here's your mushrooms. Here's
Yes.
my mushrooms. Here's.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a beautiful concept of, that full circle health in the family, and, really just joining in that connection is, and then just the love in sharing it too. And that intention that goes into it just helps all the more vibrationally for our health and our pets' health.
Yeah. And I know I got to let you go, but just because I brought up Williamsburg, I know you're going to be speaking next year at the More You Know Pet Wellness Summit, and I'm super excited to see you there again.
You.
I know.
I'm
Do
looking
you know what
forward
you're
to
talking about yet?
I do not. So Amanda Wilburn and I will have that conversation. I'm not sure. I may, well, I don't want to say, I guess I'll wait so that it's a surprise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
She'll probably
going,
want to like announce it on a live or
right.
something.
I'll going through a couple different topics and I'll let her decide.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I can't wait. And I just want to thank you so much for your time, for your knowledge, for being so willing to put this information out for pet parents, and for everything that you're doing. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for, being a conduit for getting this information out. And I'm so happy to join you. Thank you, Jessica.
Yay. Well, guys, if you have any other questions, feel free to DM me. And please, if you don't already, follow Dr. Katie Kangas. She has all of the links in Vet Care, Dr. Katie Kangas, and Share Your
Share
Bowl.
your bowl. Yep.
Share Your Bowl. Check them all out. And thank you again so much. You guys have a wonderful rest of your
Thank
day.
you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.